A man told me I was wasting everyone's time by getting cancer treatment, so I posted that we'd hooked up in his wife's bank vault. She lost her job as branch manager when they found him, stealing customer data, then spent 8 months destroying my life with dead rats, slashed tires, and a vicious harassment campaign. I've never been the type to get into petty arguments online. I'm potentially 7 months away from dying and have way more important things to focus on than squabbling with jackasses. But everyone has their limit, and mine hit me on a particularly bad Saturday afternoon when some jerk decided cancer wasn't a worthy reason to go to hospital. I had been scheduled for this appointment for what felt like forever. I was set to find out whether or not my tumor was shrinking or growing. I had been waiting at the hospital for 14 hours, thanks American healthcare, and due to all the chemo I'd went through in the last few months, my body was absolutely exhausted. I remember my name being called and going to stand up when suddenly this Karen leapt up. I've been here for an hour and nobody has seen me. This is outrageous. At first I thought the staff would just tell her to sit down, but no, they started reasoning with her. A fatal mistake against a Karen. And in the end, Karen caused so much chaos that the staff decided to take her in and have her skip me in the line just to avoid her antics. I ended up having to wait another 9 hours for my appointment because once one Karen got away with this, all the other Karens followed. I ended up spending almost 30 hours in the hospital, and after getting out, I was seriously angry. So angry that after getting home, I made a post in the hospital's Facebook group about the situation. Nothing too crazy. Just, whoever skipped me and others patiently waiting in line today, have more manners. The world doesn't revolve around you. Nothing too crazy, not calling anyone out by name, until this one jerk, Chadley, who looked like the kind of guy to say age is just a number with a straight face, responded to my post, "I heard you have cancer. If you're gonna die anyway, why waste everyone's time waiting in line? Some of us have real problems and don't have all day to wait around for lost causes." I just stared at my screen. My hands were shaking from both rage and whatever cocktail of drugs they had me on. Here I was dealing with the possibility that I might not see next Christmas, and this guy was telling me I was wasting everyone's time by existing. The comments started pouring in immediately. Other cancer patients in the group were defending me and telling Chadley to back off, but he kept doubling down with comments like, "Just being realistic here, folks," and "Someone had to say it." I clicked on his profile. Big mistake. Or maybe the best mistake I ever made. His profile picture showed him with his arm around a blonde woman at what looked like a company party. His bio read, "Proud husband to Karen. Family values, community first." His timeline was full of posts about supporting local businesses and pictures from church fundraisers. The hypocrisy made my blood boil even hotter. But then I noticed something interesting. In one of his photos from a few weeks back, he was standing in front of First National Bank downtown wearing a visitor badge. The caption read, "Visiting the wife at work. So proud of my Karen for getting promoted to branch manager." Branch manager at a bank. My exhausted brain started connecting dots. I scrolled further down his timeline. There were multiple photos of him at the bank, always with that visitor badge, sometimes carrying boxes or bags. One photo showed him helping Karen organize files in what looked like the customer records room. Something felt off about the whole thing. Call it intuition, or maybe just spite, but I decided to dig deeper. I searched the hospital Facebook group for any mentions of First National Bank. What I found made my stomach drop. 3 different posts in the last 2 months, all from elderly patients mentioning mysterious charges on their accounts or credit cards being opened in their names. All of them banked at First National. All of them had been in the hospital for extended stays. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. I typed out a response to Chadley's cruel comment. "Look, Chadley, I need you to stop lashing out in anger. What happened between us in the bank vault that one time was a hammered mistake. Your wife works there and manages the branch. This is getting uncomfortable and unprofessional." I hit post and immediately turned off my phone. Then I drove to my sister's house an hour away and told her I needed to stay with her for a few days for treatment. I ended up turning my phone off for my entire stay. IG reels aren't exactly funny when puking into a bowl. But a few days later, when I turned my phone back on, the notifications nearly crashed it. There were hundreds of messages and comments, but the important ones were screenshots people had sent me. Chadley had gone into complete panic mode. He'd posted frantic denials claiming he'd never met me and didn't know what I was talking about. The more he denied it, the guiltier he looked. Someone had tagged his wife Karen in the comments asking if she knew about this supposed vault incident. That's when things got really interesting. Karen had apparently confronted Chadley about the post. He couldn't explain why some cancer patient would make up such a specific lie about him. She started checking the bank's access logs for the vault. That's when she found it. Turns out Chadley had been using her manager codes to access restricted areas when she wasn't around. The investigation that followed was swift and brutal. Bank security found evidence that Chadley had been accessing customer files without authorization. They discovered he'd been stealing information from elderly and sick clients who banked there. Local police got involved. Chadley got arrested and charged. Karen lost her job immediately. Their house went into foreclosure. And worst of all, Karen sent me a message. "Watch your back, bitch." I stared at the message for a long time. The threat was clear, but what scared me more was how calm I felt. Maybe it was the exhaustion from treatment, or maybe I just reached a point where fear couldn't touch me anymore. Either way, I knew this wasn't over. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. I was back at my own place, trying to maintain some normalcy between treatments. My mailbox had been pried open, mail scattered across the lawn. Nothing stolen, just violated. I gathered the soggy envelopes, my hands trembling not from fear, but from the latest round of chemo. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, shuffled over with her walker. She'd seen a blonde woman around my mailbox earlier that morning. The description matched Karen perfectly. I thanked her and went inside, adding this to my growing list of incidents. The online harassment started that same night. My Facebook inbox filled with messages from fake accounts, all variations of the same theme. They knew where I lived. They knew my treatment schedule. They hoped the cancer would finish what it started. I screenshot everything, creating a folder on my desktop labeled evidence. My sister called the next morning, worried. Someone had been calling her workplace, claiming to be from the hospital, asking about my whereabouts and treatment details. The receptionist, thankfully suspicious, had refused to give any information. We both knew who was behind it. The escalation continued. My car tires were slashed while I was at a treatment appointment. The security footage showed a figure in a hoodie, but the build and height matched Karen. The repair cost ate into my already strained medical budget, but I couldn't let her know she was getting to me. Then came the social media campaign. Karen had had created multiple accounts spreading lies about me in local community groups. According to her posts, I was a scammer faking cancer for attention, had a history of making false accusations, and was dangerous to be around. Some people believed her. I started getting dirty looks at the grocery store, whispers at the pharmacy. My oncologist noticed my stress levels during my next appointment. My blood pressure was through the roof, and she warned me that stress could seriously impact my treatment effectiveness. I wanted to tell her everything, but what could she do? This was beyond medical help. The property damage escalated. My garden, which I'd tended to as therapy during good days, was destroyed overnight. Every plant uprooted, soil scattered everywhere. My bedroom window was pelted with eggs. My doorbell rang at all hours, but no one was ever there when I checked. My sister insisted I move back in with her, but I refused. Running felt like letting Karen win. Plus, I worried about bringing danger to my sister's doorstep. Her kids didn't need to be exposed to this madness. The breakthrough came when Karen made her first real mistake. She showed up at my chemotherapy appointment, not inside the treatment center, but in the parking lot. I saw her from the window, taking photos of my car, writing down my license plate, but she didn't see me watching her. I asked the nurse if I could use the phone at the desk. I called my cousin, who worked at a local electronics store. 20 minutes later, he arrived with a small security camera system. We spent my post-treatment recovery time installing them around my property. If Karen wanted to play games, I'd make sure I had proof. The cameras paid off immediately. That night, they captured Karen spray painting "liar" across my garage door. The next night, she was back, this time throwing a brick through my living room window. Each incident was saved to multiple USB drives, backed up to cloud storage. My health was deteriorating. The stress was taking its toll, and my oncologist adjusted my treatment plan. I was spending more time at the hospital, which seemed to embolden Karen. She knew my schedule, knew when I'd be gone for extended periods. One particularly bad night, after a rough treatment session, I found my front door ajar. Nothing was stolen, but things were moved. Photo frames turned backward, furniture slightly shifted, kitchen cabinets left open. Banking on someone's illness being a free pass to commit fraud? That's a special kind of stupid Chadley. And Karen promoting him to branch manager of their own personal crime spree really takes joint account to a whole new level. The message was clear. She could get to me whenever she wanted. My family rallied around me. My sister's husband, a large, intimidating man who worked construction, started checking on my house during my treatments. My elderly parents, despite my protests, began taking turns staying with me. We were circling the wagons, but I knew this couldn't continue indefinitely. The psychological warfare was almost worse than the physical damage. Karen had found my medical fundraising page and posted comments calling me a fraud. She created fake testimony sites claiming I had scammed others before. She even contacted my former employer, spinning tales about why I'd really left work. But through it all, I kept documenting every post, every vandalism incident, every threatening message. My evidence folder grew larger by the day. I knew eventually I'd need to use it, but I was waiting for the right moment. The turning point came when Karen targeted my support system. She started showing up at my sister's kids' school, trying to talk to them at pickup time. She left threatening notes on my parents' car. She even contacted other cancer patients from my support group, trying to turn them against me. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. Karen's vendetta was spreading, affecting innocent people who'd done nothing but care about me. My family was scared, my friends were pulling back, not wanting to get involved. The isolation was exactly what she wanted. I spent a sleepless night reviewing all my evidence, organizing it chronologically. The pattern was clear, the escalation undeniable. But I also noticed something else. Karen was getting sloppy. Her fake accounts used similar writing patterns. Her vandalism times followed a routine. She was confident she'd broken me, that I was too sick and weak to fight back. She was wrong. I started reaching out to others who'd been affected, the elderly bank customers who'd been scammed, the people who'd received threatening messages for defending me online, my family members who'd been harassed. Slowly, a picture emerged of someone spiraling out of control, lashing out at anyone connected to the person she blamed for her downfall. My health hit a new low. The latest scan showed the treatment wasn't working as well as hoped. The stress was literally culling me faster than the cancer. My oncologist wanted to hospitalize me, but I begged for more time. I had something I needed to finish first. As I prepared for what I knew would be the final confrontation, I thought about how different my life had become. 6 months ago, my biggest worry was whether I'd see another birthday. Now I was documenting harassment, installing security cameras, and protecting my family from a vengeful stalker. But I was still here, still fighting. And despite everything, that had to count for something. The evidence was mounted. My family was protected as best I could manage. And Karen had no idea that her biggest mistake was assuming that someone fighting cancer had nothing left to fight with. She was about to learn otherwise. The evidence folder on my computer had grown to over 500 screenshots and dozens of video files. I backed everything up to 3 different cloud services and gave my sister access to the accounts. If something happened to me, she'd have everything she needed. Karen's next move caught me off guard. She started befriending other patients at the cancer center. I noticed her in the waiting room during my appointments, chatting with elderly patients, offering them rides, bringing homemade cookies. At first, I thought she'd given up on harassing me. I was wrong. The other patients started avoiding me. Conversations stopped when I entered the waiting room. People moved seats when I sat near them. One woman I'd been friendly with for months suddenly accused me of stealing her parking spot and refused to speak to me again. Karen had poisoned the one place where I'd found understanding and support. My cousin installed additional cameras after Karen's latest visit left my front porch covered in rotting fish. The smell lingered for days despite multiple cleanings. My homeowners association sent me a warning letter about the condition of my property. When I tried to explain the situation, they suggested I was having mental health issues due to my illness. The financial pressure mounted. Between the property damage repairs, security system, and my reduced ability to work freelance due to the constant stress, my savings dwindled rapidly. Karen seemed to know this. She started leaving printouts of bankruptcy lawyers on my windshield, tucked them into my screen door, even mailed them to my sister's house. My brother-in-law, John, took time off work to help me reinforce my home security. We installed new locks, motion sensor lights, and a doorbell camera. While we worked, he mentioned seeing a blonde woman photographing his truck at his construction site. She told his coworkers she was investigating insurance fraud. Now his boss was asking questions about whether he was really taking time off for family reasons. The harassment spread to my medical team. time. My oncologist mentioned receiving strange calls asking about my diagnosis and treatment plan. Someone had tried to cancel my appointments multiple times. The pharmacy called to verify suspicious changes to my prescription orders that I hadn't authorized. Each incident required hours of phone calls to straighten out energy I didn't have to spare. Karen discovered my daily routine. She knew I went to the park on good days to feed the ducks and get gentle exercise. She started showing up there, always maintaining legal distance but making sure I saw her. She'd sit on the bench I usually used, feed the ducks I'd befriended, and smile at me with cold satisfaction. The park became another space I lost. My parents bore the brunt of her next campaign. She joined their church, presenting herself as a woman wronged who was trying to rebuild her life after her husband's arrest. She told anyone who'd listen that I'd destroyed her family with false accusations. Some congregation members, not knowing my parents were related to me, expressed sympathy for her situation. My mother came home from service in tears. The sleep deprivation tactics intensified. Construction noises at 3 a.m. that stopped when I looked outside. Car alarms going off in sequence down my street. Pizza deliveries I hadn't ordered showing up at all hours. Each incident individually meant nothing, but together they ensured I never got proper rest between treatments. My support group became another battlefield. Karen joined under a fake name, claiming her mother had cancer. She listened to our stories, learned our fears, discovered our vulnerabilities. Then she used that information in her harassment campaign. The woman whose daughter was getting married received calls saying the venue had been canceled. The man saving for experimental treatment got notices about fraudulent charges on his credit cards. I started carrying a notebook everywhere, documenting each incident by hand as backup to my digital records. Date, time, location, witnesses, description. The notebook filled quickly. My handwriting, once neat and precise, became shaky as the treatments and stress took their toll. But I kept writing. Evidence was my only weapon. Karen's fake social media accounts multiplied. She created elaborate backstories for each one, joined different community groups, and slowly built credibility before launching attacks on my character. She was patient, methodical, waiting weeks between creating accounts and using them against me. By the time I reported one, she'd already moved on to others. The physical intimidation escalated subtly. She started jogging past my house every morning, always in athletic wear, always at the exact time I left for treatment. She'd wave cheerfully as if we were friendly neighbors. When I stopped acknowledging her, she began leaving water bottles on my porch with notes about staying hydrated during chemo. To anyone watching, she looked caring. I knew better. My sister's family faced increasing pressure. Her daughter's teacher mentioned concerns about the family environment after receiving an anonymous tip about domestic instability. Her son's baseball coach pulled him aside to ask if everything was okay at home. Someone had suggested the family was dealing with criminal connections. My sister started looking haggard, torn between protecting her children and supporting me. The isolation strategy worked better than Karen probably imagined. Friends stopped calling, tired of the drama surrounding me. Extended family grew distant, unsure what to believe. Even medical staff began treating me differently, wondering if I was somehow inviting this chaos. Cancer was no longer my biggest battle. I discovered Karen had befriended my next-door neighbors. She helped them with grocery shopping, walked their dog, brought them casseroles. They thought she was wonderful, this poor woman trying to rebuild after tragedy. When I tried to warn them, they looked at me with pity. The cancer patient who'd lost touch with reality, they probably thought. My car became a regular target. Sugar in the gas tank, requiring expensive repairs. Bird seeds scattered on it nightly, ensuring it was covered in droppings by morning. Mysterious scratches appearing despite my vigilance. Each incident cost money and time I couldn't spare, but stopping the repairs would mean giving up my independence. The medical sabotage grew more sophisticated. Someone called my insurance company reporting suspected treatment fraud. An investigation froze my coverage temporarily, delaying critical scans. By the time it was resolved, I'd missed 2 appointments and had to wait weeks for new ones. My oncologist grew frustrated with what seemed like my inability to manage basic scheduling. Karen started volunteering at the hospital gift shop. What a nightmare watching Karen infiltrate every single part of this person's life. She's like a poison spreading everywhere. The cancer center, the church, even befriending the neighbors with casseroles while secretly destroying everything. She wore a cheerful volunteer smock, helped elderly visitors, and earned praise from staff. She made sure to work shifts that coincided with my treatment schedule. Walking past the gift shop became another gauntlet. Her presence a constant reminder that she could reach me even in my most vulnerable moments. My nephew's birthday party became collateral damage. Karen sent anonymous messages to parents claiming the party location was unsafe, that the family was under investigation. Half the invited children didn't show up. My nephew, only 7, couldn't understand why his friends weren't there. My sister found him crying in his room, asking if he'd done something wrong. The documentation process consumed hours each day, downloading security footage, organizing screenshots, writing detailed incident reports. My laptop overheated from constant use. I bought external hard drives, afraid of losing everything to a technical failure. The evidence collection became almost as exhausting as the harassment itself. Karen mastered the art of plausible deniability. Every action could be explained away as coincidence or misunderstanding. The jogging route that happened to pass my house, the volunteer work that coincidentally matched my hospital schedule, the friendly gestures that felt like threats. She stayed just within legal boundaries while systematically destroying my life. My weight dropped dramatically. Between the cancer treatment and constant stress, eating became difficult. Concerned medical staff started discussing feeding tubes. I forced myself to drink protein shakes, knowing I needed strength for what was coming. Karen started leaving diet books on my porch, weight loss congratulations cards in my mailbox. The family meetings became frequent and tense. My sister wanted me to move out of state, start fresh somewhere Karen couldn't find me. My parents suggested hiring a lawyer, getting a restraining order. My brother-in-law offered more direct solutions that I had to talk him out of. Everyone had ideas, but no one had answers that would actually work. I noticed patterns in Karen's behavior. She escalated on Thursdays, probably her day off. She avoided actions on Sundays, maintaining her church-going facade. She was most active during the full moon, though I couldn't explain why. These patterns became predictable, giving me small advantages in anticipating her next moves. The community center where I'd once taken gentle yoga classes became off-limits. Karen enrolled in the same classes, always positioning herself where I'd have to see her. She befriended the instructor, became the helpful student everyone loved. When I stopped attending, she told people I'd become too proud to exercise with regular folks. My medical fundraising page required constant monitoring. Every few days, new fake testimonials appeared calling me a fraud. I'd report them, they'd be removed, and new ones would appear. The legitimate donors grew confused, some requesting refunds. The platform threatened to shut down my page due to the unusual activity. Another financial lifeline threatened. Karen discovered my love of the local library. She started volunteering there too, organizing book clubs and children's reading hours. The head librarian, who'd known me for years, suddenly became cold and distant. Books I'd reserved mysteriously disappeared from the hold shelf. My library card showed fines for books I'd never checked out. The pet harassment began when she realized I'd grown attached to a stray cat I'd been feeding. The cat disappeared one day, only to reappear at my sister's house 20 miles away, confused and scared. How it got there remained a mystery, but the message was clear. Nothing I cared about was safe from her reach. My cousin's electronics store faced mysterious negative reviews online, all posted within days of him helping me with security cameras. His boss questioned whether he was bringing personal drama to work. He stood by me, but I saw the strain it put on his career. Another person suffering because they'd chosen to help me. The bathroom incidents at the treatment center escalated. Suddenly, every accessible stall was occupied when I needed them. Wet floors appeared just as I walked by. Paper towel dispensers emptied before I reached them. Small inconveniences that added up to exhausting obstacles during already difficult days. Karen's research into my past bore fruit. She found an old blog I'd written years ago about struggling with depression. She screenshot posts out of context, creating a narrative of mental instability. These appeared in community forums with concerned comments about whether someone with my history should be trusted. Years of healing and growth reduced to ammunition against me. The night terrors started after I found my bedroom window open one evening, curtains moving in the breeze. Nothing was missing or disturbed, but the violation of that sacred space broke something in me. I started sleeping in the living room, then the kitchen, never the same place twice. Even in my own home, I felt hunted. My treatment team noticed the decline. Blood work showed stress hormones interfering with treatment effectiveness. My white cell count dropped dangerously low. The oncologist adjusted medications, added anxiety prescriptions, recommended counseling, but how could I explain that the real cancer in my life walked on two legs and wore a volunteer badge? The extended family began choosing sides. Some believed Karen's victim narrative, especially those who only knew the story through social media. Others supported me, but from a distance, afraid of becoming targets themselves. Family gatherings became tense affairs where the elephant in the room trumped all conversation. I discovered Karen had accessed my medical records. Small details she couldn't have known appeared in her harassment. References to specific medication names, appointment times she shouldn't have been aware of, treatment details that were private. The hospital launched an investigation but found no evidence of improper access. She'd covered her tracks well. My sister's marriage strained under the pressure. Late-night strategy sessions, constant worry about their children's safety, the financial drain of helping me with repairs and security. I overheard them arguing one night, my brother-in-law suggesting they needed to protect their own family first. The guilt ate at me worse than any cancer cell. The workplace harassment expanded. Karen contacted every freelance client I'd ever worked with, posing as a concerned citizen warning them about my condition affecting my work quality. Projects dried up. Long-term clients suddenly had budget cuts. My professional reputation, built over years, crumbled in weeks. I started planning my counterattack. Every pattern I'd noticed, every piece of evidence collected, every witness who'd seen her actions. I created detailed timelines, cross-referenced incidents, built an airtight case. If the system wouldn't protect me, I'd have to protect myself using the only weapons I had left, truth and determination. The preparation required sacrifices. I stopped attending support group to protect other members. I limited contact with extended family to shield them from harassment. I became a ghost in my own life, existing only between hospital visits and evidence organization. But with each sacrifice, my resolve strengthened. My health reached a critical point. The oncologist delivered mixed news. The tumors had stopped growing but weren't shrinking either. The stress was literally preventing my body from healing. She gave me an ultimatum: find a way to reduce stress or face hospitalization. The irony wasn't lost on me. How could I reduce stress when stress had a name and address? I made my decision during a particularly bad night, after finding my car windshield smashed and my mailbox on fire. Sitting in my kitchen at 3 a.m., surrounded by evidence folders and medical bills, I realized I couldn't win by playing defense. It was time to go on the offensive, to use everything I'd learned about Karen against her. The plan formed slowly, carefully. I would need help from the few allies I had left. It would require precise timing, careful coordination, and more energy than I felt capable of mustering. But the alternative was letting her win, letting her destroy not just me, but everyone who tried to help me. I spent the next week preparing, organizing evidence into presentable packets, creating backup plans for backup plans, reaching out to those who'd been affected by her campaign, building a network of people ready to stand up and speak truth. For the first time in months, I felt something other than fear and exhaustion. The morning of my planned response arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for what felt like a final battle. I took my medications, ate a proper breakfast for the first time in weeks, and reviewed my notes one last time. My hands shook, but not from chemo this time. This was anticipation, maybe even hope. My phone buzzed with messages from my small support team. Everyone was in position. The security cameras were recording. The evidence was uploaded and ready. All the pieces were in place. Now came the hardest part, executing a plan that would either free me from this nightmare or escalate it beyond imagination. I looked at myself in the mirror, thin, pale, scarred from medical procedures and stress, but still standing, still fighting. Karen had underestimated the power of someone with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. She'd pushed too hard, spread her campaign too wide, left too many victims in her wake. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera to see a delivery driver with a package I hadn't ordered. Another of her games, probably. But this time, I was ready. This time, I had my own games to play. I opened the door with a smile, accepted the package, and set the final phase in motion. The war between us was about to end, one way or another. The full moon affecting Karen's behavior? Someone needs to tell her being a werewolf of pettiness isn't actually a recognized medical condition, though it would explain why she's literally howling mad at everyone. The package contained a dead rat wrapped in newspaper. The smell hit me immediately, making my already queasy stomach lurch. I photographed it from multiple angles, adding the images to my evidence folder before disposing of the carcass. Karen was escalating, but she'd also just given me more proof of her harassment. That afternoon, I executed the first part of my plan. I created a simple website using a free hosting service, uploading a curated selection of evidence, security footage of Karen vandalizing my property, screenshots of threatening messages, documentation of every incident, organized chronologically. I didn't publish it yet, just prepared it for when the time was right. My sister arrived unexpectedly, her face drawn with worry. She'd received a call from Child Protective Services about an anonymous tip regarding her parenting. The investigator had already visited, found nothing concerning, but the message was clear. Karen was willing to weaponize government agencies against my family. I spent that evening teaching my sister how to document everything. We installed a recording app on her phone, set up cloud backups for any evidence she collected. Her husband John arrived later with a small safe where we could store physical copies of important documents. We were building our own defensive network. The next morning brought a new horror. My oncologist called personally, her voice strained. Someone had attempted to access my medical files using stolen credentials. The hospital's IT department had caught the breach attempt, but it raised serious security concerns. She suggested I consider transferring to another facility for my safety. I declined the transfer, but used the incident to my advantage. I filed a formal complaint with the hospital administration, naming Karen as a likely suspect given her volunteer status and previous harassment. They promised to investigate, though I knew their hands were tied without concrete proof. Karen's Thursday escalation arrived on schedule. This time she'd superglued my locks while I was at treatment. I discovered it when I returned home exhausted, unable to get inside my own house. My elderly father had to drive over with tools to help me break in through a window. Another expense, another violation, another piece of evidence. My cousin called that night with interesting news. He'd been reviewing security footage from his store after the negative reviews incident. He'd found clear video of Karen in the parking lot, taking photos of employee vehicles. She'd been building a target list of anyone who helped me. We added his footage to our growing collection. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor, approached me one morning with a small notebook. She'd been documenting Karen's visits to our street for weeks, noting times, activities, and vehicle descriptions. Her meticulous records filled gaps in my own documentation. Sometimes the best allies come from surprising places. I decided to test Karen's patterns. Instead of my usual Thursday treatment, I rescheduled for Wednesday without announcing it anywhere. Sure enough, Thursday came with no incidents. But Friday morning, my car had 4 flat tires. She was watching me more closely than I'd realized, adapting to my changes. My health took another downturn. The constant stress had weakened my immune system, leading to an infection that required immediate hospitalization. I spent 3 days on IV antibiotics, my body fighting battles on multiple fronts. Even from my hospital bed, I continued organizing evidence on my laptop. During my hospital stay, Karen made a critical error. She approached one of the elderly patients she'd befriended, trying to get information about me. But this particular woman, Benji's grandmother, had seen through Karen's act weeks ago. She recorded their entire conversation on her phone, capturing Karen's attempts to manipulate her into spying on me. Armed with this new evidence, I reached out to a legal aid organization. They couldn't take my case directly, but provided valuable guidance on filing restraining order paperwork. I spent hours filling out forms, attaching evidence, building an airtight case for protection. My sister's family implemented their own countermeasures. They installed security cameras, changed their routines, and alerted the children's schools about the situation. My nephew and niece didn't understand why they couldn't play in the front yard anymore, but keeping them safe took priority over their confusion. Karen's volunteer work at the hospital ended abruptly. The administration, concluding their investigation, found enough concerns about her behavior to revoke her volunteer privileges. She'd lost one of her main ways to monitor and torment me. I learned this from a sympathetic nurse who'd witnessed some of Karen's suspicious activities. The financial pressure reached a breaking point. Between medical bills and harassment-related expenses, I faced impossible choices. My parents offered to help, but they were on a fixed income. My sister was already stretched thin. I swallowed my pride and updated my fundraising page, honestly explaining the additional challenges I faced. Surprisingly, the community responded. People who'd been silently watching the situation unfold began contributing. Small amounts mostly, $5 here, $10 there, but it added up. Some donors left messages of support, sharing their own experiences with stalkers or harassment. I wasn't as alone as Karen had made me feel. My evidence website went live on a Monday morning. I shared the link only with those directly affected by Karen's campaign. Within hours, I received messages from others who'd experienced her manipulation. The yoga instructor who'd wondered why I stopped coming. The librarian who'd found the pattern of mysterious finds suspicious. Pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Karen's response was swift and predictable. She created her own website, portraying herself as a victim of cyberbullying, but her narrative had holes, inconsistencies that anyone paying attention could spot. She claimed I'd fabricated evidence, but couldn't explain the security footage or recorded conversations. The police finally took notice. With multiple victims now coming forward with documented harassment, they couldn't dismiss it as a personal dispute anymore. A detective contacted me, reviewing my evidence, taking my statement. He seemed particularly interested in the pattern of escalation and the involvement of my family members. I provided the detective with everything: printed photos, USB drives of video footage, detailed timelines. My months of obsessive documentation suddenly had purpose. He mentioned that several other complaints had been filed against Karen recently, suggesting a pattern of behavior that went beyond just targeting me. My treatment schedule continued despite everything. I sat through chemo sessions reviewing legal documents on my phone. I used recovery time to organize evidence. Cancer didn't pause for legal drama, and I couldn't let Karen's harassment derail my medical care. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I prepared meticulously, organizing my evidence into a clear presentation. My sister insisted on accompanying me, along with my parents. We arrived early, my stomach churning from both anxiety and medication side effects. Karen appeared with her own folder of documents, dressed professionally, playing the part of a wronged woman. But when the judge reviewed the evidence, her facade cracked. Security footage doesn't lie. Recorded conversations speak for themselves. The pattern of harassment was undeniable. The judge granted the restraining order. Karen was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, or my treatment center. She couldn't contact me or my family members. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. It wasn't perfect protection, but it was legal acknowledgement of what I'd endured. Karen's exit from the courtroom was dramatic. She knocked over a chair, slammed doors, muttered threats just quiet enough to avoid contempt charges. But I felt something shift. The power dynamic had changed. She was now the one who had to watch her steps. The walk to my car felt different, lighter somehow, despite my physical exhaustion. My sister held my arm, steadying me, while my parents flanked us protectively. We'd won this battle, though I knew the war might continue in subtler ways. That evening, I received messages from others who'd been granted restraining orders against Karen. 3 other people, all with similar stories of escalating harassment after some perceived slight. We formed an informal support network, sharing resources and strategies for staying safe. My health showed slight improvement in the following days. The reduced stress helped my body respond better to treatment. My oncologist noted improved blood work results, cautiously optimistic about my progress. I still had a long road ahead, but at least now I could walk it without looking over my shoulder constantly. The community's perception shifted too. People who'd believed Karen's lies began reaching out with apologies. The grocery store clerk who'd given me suspicious looks now asked about my health genuinely. The pharmacist who'd seemed cold became friendly again. Karen's web of deception was unraveling. I returned to small normalcy markers, feeding the ducks at the park without fear, attending a gentle exercise class at a different community center, reading library books that actually made it to the hold shelf. Simple pleasures that harassment had stolen, slowly reclaimed. My family began healing too. My nephew's birthday party was rescheduled, this time with full attendance. My sister's marriage stabilized without the constant crisis management. My parents attended church without encountering hostile whispers. We were finding our footing again. The police investigation into Karen continued. The detective contacted me periodically with updates, building a larger case. Other victims had come forward, painting a picture of someone who'd weaponized community connections against anyone who crossed her. My situation wasn't unique, just the most documented. One morning, I woke to find my garden beginning to recover. New shoots pushing through the disturbed soil, life returning despite the destruction. I spent an hour watering and weeding, my hands steady for the first time in months. The simple act of nurturing growth felt like reclaiming myself. Karen was arrested 2 weeks later for violating the restraining order. She'd been caught on camera near my treatment center, apparently trying to access the parking garage. She spent a night in jail before making bail, but the message was sent. The law was watching now. I focused on healing, both body and spirit. Treatment continued with better results. I started writing again, taking on small freelance projects to rebuild my professional reputation. Each normal day felt like a victory against someone who'd tried to destroy my life. My evidence website became a resource for others facing harassment. I added sections on documentation strategies, legal resources, and support networks. Messages arrived weekly from people finding hope in my story, realizing they weren't alone in their struggles. The final confrontation came at Karen's criminal trial. Multiple charges of harassment, stalking, and cyberstalking. I testified calmly, presenting facts without emotion. Other victims shared their experiences. The jury saw the pattern clearly. Karen received 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, and community service. Not the dramatic imprisonment some might expect, but realistic consequences for her actions. More importantly, she now had a criminal record that would follow her, limiting her ability to harm others. Standing outside the courthouse after the verdict, I felt the weight of months lifting. My family surrounded me, their relief palpable. We'd survived something that tried to break us. We'd fought back with truth and persistence. We'd won. The drive home was quiet. I watched familiar streets pass by, no longer scanning for threats. My phone buzzed with supportive messages from our network of survivors. Each person Karen had targeted now free to move forward. That night, I slept deeply for the first time since receiving Karen's initial threat. No nightmares, no anxiety, just rest. My body, finally free from constant stress, could focus on what it needed most: healing. Recovery wasn't instant or complete. I still double-checked locks, still saved documentation habitually, but each day brought small improvements. Each week saw fear's grip loosen. I was reclaiming my life one moment at a time. 3 months later, my scans showed tumor shrinkage. Not remission yet, but progress. My oncologist credited the improvement partly to reduced stress, partly to my body's renewed ability to fight. I had hope again, something Karen had nearly stolen. I returned to the park where everything had felt lost. The ducks remembered me, waddling over expectantly. I sat on the bench that had once been claimed by my tormentor, feeding them peacefully. An elderly man nodded hello, and I smiled back without suspicion. Life had taught me hard lessons about vulnerability and vigilance, but it also showed me the power of documentation, community support, and refusing to be silenced. I'd faced 2 battles simultaneously and survived both. My story became a cautionary tale in online support groups. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Build support networks. Don't face harassment alone. What started as one person's vendetta had become a roadmap for others finding their way through similar darkness. I kept writing, kept healing, kept living. Each day without harassment was a gift. Each treatment session completed was progress. Each moment with family was precious. Karen had tried to steal my remaining time, but instead had taught me to value it more. The cancer fight continued, but now I faced it without the additional burden of stalking. My energy could focus where it belonged, on healing, on family, on whatever time I had left. That was my true victory. Thanks for reading this story with me. What a wild ride from duck pond drama to courtroom justice. I hope you have a wonderful day filled with 0 stalkers and plenty of peaceful moments.